Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shane, and this is the Rolling Sound podcast. I'm joined with Phil. How you doing, Phil? And Nyk Fry, who is a fantastic guy that I really enjoyed working with. So I'm really happy you're here.
Well, I've got you fooled then.
That's true. So, Nyk, you've done a lot of things. You've done some cinematography as well as audio.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm really excited about is Phil is big into audio, and I just think that you two talking together, I think you two have a lot to gain from talking to each other.
Oh,
So what he's really saying, Phil, is that he hopes that we'll talk about him and say something cool. That's what he's hoping. That's what this is all about.
You know what I just love? Camera. In that I hate.
With your 32 megapixel dynamic range.
Shut up.
He said that earlier in the call, and I'm never letting it go.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I like it, yeah. Well, there was a script once that was talking about, and this is an interesting example of how if someone's going to write a role that they should maybe do the research. They said, oh yeah, apparently you've got really good hearing. You can hear from 20 to 40 hertz. And I know, and I was like, well, so should everybody else be able to? But that's not what they were meaning was 20 hertz to 40k, and because it was supposed to be this superhuman sort of situation. But
there's like this because I'm in film school, and like there's this constant like classic film joke that the moment you jump on a film set, they're gonna tease you for being a film student. So like if you be a grip, they're gonna say like someone's gonna above you is gonna tell you, go give me a box of f-stops, and then you run up to like.
There you go. Yeah.
Run up, look for it. Where do you keep the f-stops?
Yeah, and going around the whole set, and everyone's going out. He's the new guy. Yeah, and T-stops.
Yeah. I've heard a bag of T-stops.
Let's talk.
Yeah, let's talk about audio. So you two are both audio guys, and I know almost nothing about the audio end of things. So I was kind of hoping to learn from both of you about your equipment. So Phil's got some sort of recorder that he was foolish enough not to bring with him into quarantine. What do you have, Phil?
It's completely safe. It's in a safe place. I buried it about six miles deep into the jungle. It's fine. No, but I have a Sound Devices Mix Pre 10 Mark II, I think, the newest one that came out. I love it so much. It's just great. It has a little Bluetooth feature to it, where I don't have to like. I have 5 minutes to get change the scene name to 3BA take 2.
Right, all the rolling and pressing and rolling and pressing.
I was just like intricately trying to like get the slate correctly. It's like, okay, I got the A, now I get to get 4 more letters, and I have 3 seconds to do it. But now I can just like connect it to my phone, and just like I can type it out on my phone, or I can use speaker, and it'll just auto change it for it.
But interestingly enough, you're actually pointing out something about audio on set that a lot of people don't consider, and that is some of the things you do have nothing to do with audio.
Yeah.
Not directly. The user interface of a recorder can be just as important depending on what it's being used for, what environment you're in, as anything else. So it gets down to that thing, what's the best car?
Yeah.
Some people would say Ferrari, some people would say, a truck, and then they get really into specific models, but it depends what you're doing with it. And I've got a bunch of recorders, and they all do different things, and some of them aren't actually very good, including my phone. I've actually done stuff with my phone sound effects when I was out walking, and I heard there's one situation when I required the sound of a crow, and I always like to get my own sounds. I can't remember that any time that I've used the stock sound. I'll make it.
Yeah.
If it's the explosion, I'll go, I'll make a sound like that, and then we'll, then manipulate it and use it to make it work how it's supposed to do.
Sure.
Unless it's a specific sound like the NASA beep or an actual has to be the sound of a F-14, but I'll go and record it. And obviously I can't record the NASA beat, but you could emulate that by getting the tone deep, what is it?
Yeah.
Sounds like it's probably 2K-ish or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you could do that. But anyway, I was walking around and I went all these places trying to get these crows with all my good stuff. And one day I was walking to Walmart and this crow, I could have just done that, couldn't I? It was just going round and round on me and following me, doing it. So I thought, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, okay, all right, you want to be in this, don't you? All right, so I started recording with my phone. And it was fine. It's stereo. The thing with the phones is that they're not so good in the wind. But what is amazing is that they actually are quite good noise floor-wise, because they do all this fancy processing that isn't necessarily Fidelity, but it sure works. And I was very impressed with what I was able to get out of that. I've got natural sounds that are like that before. Sometimes, just perfect crickets at night. Whip out the phone if that's all you've got. But let me show you this. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, this is the Nerd Pack. I'll give you a sound of it. Okay, so this is the fanny pack, my smallest fanny pack. And you get, these are actually tactical pouches. And I put in these spare batteries, all kinds of things. I even have the sexy braces, suspenders. Is that what you guys call them? Yeah. And in that goes. Oh, I wasn't expecting the show and tell. Anyway, I've got. I'm started for sound effects. I have the ambisonic recorders, and I've got an H3 VR, an H2N, and then for really serious, if I'm planning it, this is just walking around on my way to the store, which has got to be hilarious to watch. What's he doing? What's he think he's doing? He's got this big pack. I don't care, because sometimes you go under a bridge and it's just perfect. I'm gonna get it, and that's when you're a lifer. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a healthy addiction. But my best atmospheric mic is the NTS-F1, which is a true sound field mic. Other models exist, of course, but I chose that for certain reasons, noise floor and other things. And I like the smoother sounds. I like a sound that you start off with that you can maybe work with, that's got noise floor is low, and if you have to equalize it, that's great. There's a flip side of theory in a lot of people will choose bright mics because then they think, oh, I've got the clarity. But I would caution people that brightness is not necessarily clarity. It's the whole presentation. The actual fidelity of the sound is the most important thing. But that's my philosophy. If you build all of your sounds around a certain center, then your mix will sound a certain way. Others will do things different way. And it also depends maybe what the projects are. A lot of my stuff is based more on what I would call terrestrial drama. And there's a different approach to that than it is, say, to action. You might think you'd record it the same way, but say for action sounds and so on, yes, you might record those clean and then compress an EQ for impact. A lot of the work I do is BBC-esque stuff where it's like, this is how it sounded. That's supposed to be fidelity, so it's different approach.
You bring up something that I've always really wondered about, because I've done a post editing internship in LA with a company called Smart Post Sound, and they really taught me the importance of fidelity and if you see birds, make sure you have the sound effect of birds in there, and that extends all the way to if someone's firing an M16, make sure it sounds like an M16.
It's got to be an M16 and the right caliber of M16 because they vary, and where the muzzle is pointed, because they sound way different from behind than from the front. Completely different.
The only outlier in that I see is silencers and suppressors in action movies or horror movies. It's always that like it's always
sound.
yeah. It's like the only exception.
They don't. They sound like they in reality they sound like a great big stapler.
Yeah,
that's how they really sound.
Yeah.
So there has to be. I mean, you know, and I always laugh at movies where they open a briefcase and it goes. It's like it's a briefcase, everybody. If your briefcase started doing that, wow, you know, you would be wondering.
I'd buy it.
And
everyone would buy it. Yeah.
Well, it's the Pelican case that's been in a hold, and you got fly to a different altitude, and you release the sound. But here's the thing that I find I do. Or say, for example, sometimes you do have to enhance the sound. We're working on a movie right now that is it's thriller horror genre, and it's based in a prison, and it's a ghostly kind of thing, and they talk about the sound of the guards using their billy clubs along the actual the things. Well, so when we were actually I did the on-set sound as well. When we were there, we thought, well, let's just get that. Well, the problem is, the billy club is dull wood. The bars are held, and they're thick, and they're painted. So they just sounded like this. That's a keyboard right now. That's just plastic. It's like, completely horrible sound, you know, and this has to have this ethereal, menacing, clanky sound. Yeah. So I'm actually combining sounds. I'm using other kinds of metal, and I found this. I was out again walking around with my sexy pack, and I found this metal railing. I thought, I wonder what happens if I hit that. You know, it's like perfect. And it's a matter of doing all of those sounds and getting it right, and pitch changing. And that's why when you're getting sound effects, you might want to go to higher sampling rates so that you can pitch down without it getting gritty and losing stuff, especially if you want to go 4 octaves, 5 octaves down. You know, you're getting to the point where it's like you breaks up. And that's when, on those things, you're going to want to have microphones that, like some of the Sheps and so on, that can actually record to 30K, so that when you record and you pull that down, you halve the speed. Now you've still got 15K bandwidth instead of 10. And so instead of a roll-off, and there's actually something up there. Even though, in reality, you'd probably want to filter that out for bandwidth reasons on your actual master.
So back to sort of just because this is all I can contribute to this conversation, knowing all I know about audio is I used to be big into high school theater, and there was a play that we did where at one point there's the sound of a crane, right, flying overhead, and. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that kind of crane.
So the bird crane, and they played the noise of a geese. Yeah, or
goose.
A goose, I suppose. And I had no idea. I didn't know what the difference was. Nobody who was. It's just a high school play. None of us knew birds at all. But my dad, who's, you know, true blood Montanan, whatever, when he went and saw it, he was like, That was not it.
That's not right, son.
And it completely took him out of it. Yeah. So just having the right sound effect is actually super duper important.
Well, you know, I think that is very important. If I'm doing car sounds, I'll get at least the right number of cylinders.
That's
certainly. You go ahead.
I have never thought about like thinking about like the exact cylinders. Like that's specific shit right there.
Here's what happens. Well, and that's the thing. If you do try it, if you record, say, a Toyota Tercel, a Civic might sound very similar, unless it's an S, because they have higher lift cams and things like that. It depends how specific you want to get. And here's the thing: I cannot not hear that stuff.
Yeah.
And so it isn't because the job I do the job I do because I can't do anything else. To people from the outside, they'll say, "Oh, doesn't this drive you nuts, or it spoils your enjoyment of other things?" No, it doesn't. It's a great thing, and you know, and you've got rusty doors, you've got the weight of a door, you've got, and again, coming back to the vehicles, and you've got doors closing. And if I am doing a military thing, and I need to get the sound of a jet that specific jet or even the canopy going down, a lot of times you can actually ask, and they'll, they might let you go and do it. I just need the canopy going down because I'm doing this thing. And I'm like,
That's
okay,
cool.
well, because technically they work for us, and as long as it's not a matter of, national security, you can actually get an F-16 canopy to come down, and you get, like, okay, you done? Right, okay, that's it, get out of there. And one other thing that I'd like to point out, that from the standpoint of fidelity, what do you think is the most important thing to record? What do you pay most attention to, or when you're choosing equipment? For me, one of the most important things is this one particular factor, and that is silence. Can it record silence? Because there's nothing worse than having the equipment you've got add to it. It's coloring it and also adding this hiss. I got some great recordings once where I drove I don't know how far out of the city, and I wanted to get the ambient sound there in 4-channel surround, because the scene that it was for was these guys had driven off into the desert in LA. That's where we shot the original scene, and obviously so we'd done the dialogue with the single boom, and then for the surround sound I needed to go and get all that stuff. So I had to go and find quiet place to record nothing.
Yeah.
Yet it has this ambience of something that's different from it. It's amazing how you don't really register it until you take it out of the surround speakers. But what was really cool is, so I sat there for about 20 minutes to get the best nothing possible, especially seeing as I've driven all that way. I may as well do that. And of course, when you're doing that, if you just touch your glasses, that comes through. You hear it. It's like everything is, you can't move. You got to sit there. I'm sitting on an Apple box, just like being all quiet.
So have to become stone.
I had 2 flies go right from left to right diagonally, and the other one went another way at different times, and that was so good because you hear that when you put that into a theater. People think a real fly. They don't even notice you recorded it. You see them go, they're flicking off this fly. And I do too, if I forget that it's in that one pace. And I've used it for other things because it's so convincing. And that's the kind of thing that gets us excited, right? It's like, it's not necessarily the explosions. Those are impressive and they're fun to do. But everyone does those. Getting that one fly that is you recorded it. It's not from anywhere else. I'll tell you another story, though, that's so hilarious. Going out to try and get that silence. You go out, there's nothing out there, nothing. And you start to record. It's totally silent. It's uncannily quiet. You turn off your truck and you get out and you hear your feet on the ground. You can almost hear your own heartbeat, And in the moment you press the red button, what happens? Somebody's construction 10 miles away, but you can hear it. Gun ranges.
Hey, you shooting a movie?
Yeah.
Someone just walks up, you shooting a movie here?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I've recorded sprinklers before in the big ones in the potato fields. And people come, the guys stop and they come up and say, howdy, how you doing? All right. What y'all doing? And because they see, you're holding this stuff, and I'm wearing what looks like a tack vest. So I look like a terrorist or something. Like I'm going to shoot their sprinkler. But it's funny. Anyway, getting back to it. So you press the red button, and this is what happened on this one. I hear this voice, this guy screaming, Frank! 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 Like, shut up!
Did he ever get a hold of Frank?
Who's Frank? Yeah, no, I don't know. And eventually he stopped, but I kept thinking, how does this happen? But it's amazing. And that's one thing on a movie set, isn't it? Everyone, especially when they go to scout locations, there's 2 things that location scouts, well, actually 3 kind of, that they should think about. One is, what does the room sound like? Especially if you're using part of the room, but the rest of it doesn't sound right. Especially if it's too echoey, because it's hard to take that away. There are methods, but they never work 100% right. If you've got this one corner that's supposed to be a little office, but the rest of it's unfinished, then you've got a bit of a nightmare to work with that. Adding reverb you can, taking it away harder.
I haven't done much work outside of school. I did this one project in Livingston, in which they needed a sound guy, and they the it was a pretty good, like the whole film itself was like really fun and a great experience. Very very big learning curve. A lot of things were happening all at once, but one of the biggest things was the location was right next to an active railroad. So every other 10, 15, 20 minutes, train would come in, the windows would start shaking, and just the audio was just like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. I can't fight this one.
But by the sea as well, on a nice summer day, what do you hear? You hear the boats. You hear probably helicopters taking sightseeing things, and it's amazing. They just go around you. Like, they're not seeing you. It just feels like that because more than likely you've chosen a location that's picturesque and where other people want to go a lot of times. And so, yeah, that sort of stuff happens. The most important thing, though, with some of that ambient sound is not so much whether it's there, but whether it changes.
Do you record same? Do you record the same ambient sound with the same boom microphone, or do you use a special microphone to capture ambient sound?
If you're doing live set sound, I'll use the same mic in the same position that I was recording the because you probably noticed it's the lightsaber phasing effect. If you've got your boom above somebody and even you move over, you're doing a 2-shot, then you do a 1-shot, coverage of each person. That ambient sound, even outside, can phase if the microphone moves. And if you suddenly decide, I'm going to point it towards the sound source, it'll really change. And so now you've got your room tone. That's different from the whole room tone, which is the point of having it. And in fact, I've got to the point now that what I do is I don't even bother with room tone because it gets in the way sometimes. If I know that I've got it in the content. A lot of times they'll take enough of a break, and you have to listen so that there aren't any clicks. Clicks of something, like a sound like that. Because if there is in your room tone, you'll hear that. And that's what you'll notice, it's repeating. That's not right. But if someone gives you, as often will happen, good directors will go, and action. And they'll also go, cut. They're not go, cut, like a lot of them do. And you have to tell them, you have to say, because you come from the standpoint of, you're just going to spend a lot of time in post. If I've got you saying cut as people are walking out of doors, we've got all those beautiful sounds of the footsteps. Well, the end of the scene. No, but you might want that to go over. And you don't know yet if it's the end of the scene. And for the sake of 5 seconds, say cut later.
Yeah.
Also, if they're sitting down, you've got instant room tone. You've got all this sound. And so that's one of the things I'll do. And they'll ask me, should we get room tone? The AD will. And you say yes or no. Sometimes they want to see you do it, but most of the times you don't end up using it. Other people do have different workflows, and they want it, they need it, they love it. That's just a thing.
Okay, so sorry, with all the audio talk, I've just kind of been trying to follow everything the best I can, but every now and then you'll use a term that I just don't understand.
Throw in a request for a glossary. Yeah.
Well, no, I just thought we could move, because I kind of wanted to ask you, Nick, about, because you did a thing with Air Supply a long time ago, or not a long time ago.
Well,
I kind of wanted to ask.
Well, I've known them for 17, 18 years, something like that.
Right. So I just kind of wanted, because it was a documentary, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Is that out yet?
No, it's one of those situations where you do the one part. I wasn't contracted to do the editing, and I think it's probably something that's going to surface.
Okay, it'll just show up some point.
Yeah. Now the music videos that I've made with them, obviously that's different. I'm not, from an audio standpoint, all we're doing is that to track.
Mm-hmm. So you shot most of it, right? Or did you?
I shot all of the stuff I shot. Yeah, I was on the road with them for 6 months.
So you did the audio and the video, right?
For the so this is how
For
I
the
did
documentary.
it. Yeah. I deliberately used a camera that I wouldn't normally use for movies. Of course, it's more of an ENG camera. You probably could kind of use it for an independent movie. As a Canon, don't remember the model number, but it was a 4-channel. I needed the 4 channels of audio, and here's why. I needed to be able to get because it had built-in stereo mics. It also had the ability to mount and I used a hypercardioid mic on it instead of a long shotgun, and I'll explain why in a minute. And then I also got a mono feed from the board wirelessly, because I wasn't there to do the music, and the chit-chat is always mono anyway, right? So it's just cents a pound. So I didn't need stereo from the board. Now, the reason I did that configuration is so when I was in the concerts, I had the sound. I've got some great audience sounds that are nice and surroundy, and I did some with the 4-channel as well, with a separate recorder. Then, obviously, the board, so that it didn't sound typical amateur concerty. I had a direct feed of them talking directly into the mics. And then, though, the reason I had the shotgun on there, or the hypercardioid, was so that I could pick out some things. Even in the concert, you hear some girls, woo! You get her. If you can point dead right and get close enough, you can actually isolate that, whereas the stereo mics are very, very broad. You know what it's like, built-in mics. Sound like built-in mics, usually pretty crap, but they're not crap. They're actually not what people are expecting. I don't know why they don't face them forward and only forward, but that's the way they design those camera mics. Except for in my case, it worked well because I could supplement it with these other feeds. And then when I was doing interviews as they were leaving, I was just talking to the audience. Those mics, hypercardioid. I have AKGs, Neumann, Sheps, any of them. They're all really good. The pickup pattern's nice and tight, not too tight. You don't get the ambient sounds as you would with an actual shotgun. Inside, especially near the stage where it was fairly nicely, or in the wings or anything like that. If I'm talking to people who had got backstage, it sounded like they were laved. I mean, it's amazingly good. And this was a slightly new experience for me, because although I'd done television, that's one thing. Movies are another thing. And this was something else, because it's a split in the difference between the expectations are, we want this to sound fantastic and look fantastic at the same time as you're an army of one. And that's, again, I pressed record and everything went into the camera, all 4 channels.
So there was no syncing or anything after the fact or anything?
No, they just all worked. Yeah.
Right on.
Because again, you're generating so much material. If we were this is what would happen. We go on tour for 3 nights at the end of a week, sometimes come back for 1 day, and then go out again. So there's another day of traveling or whatever. Sometimes I'd be editing on the plane. But the other guys would be like, yeah, should we go and have dinner after the show? And I'd be like, I've got to do backups. I've got to do all this other stuff. I've got to sync all this stuff. And when I say sync is, put things into timelines. The audio and video is already synced, but getting everything that made sense, because I knew I was going to be passing this project off to somebody else. And marking and renaming everything, calling it a stuff, then also uploading rushes for the management to see. Doing all of that all the time. And so if I had another set of audio, another set of things, another thing you got to press go with, it's a nightmare. And it would have been nice to have had a crew of 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. It would be nice to have had a runner. But what I found was it didn't really matter, because they would just come and talk to you anyway. In fact, they'd line up. Oh, you're with the band, because they'd introduced Nick's doing this video for us. And so afterwards, they would come up to me like I'm some sort of royalty, which of course I'm not, but they thought you were. And so once you get introduced, they love to talk to you, and they're usually pretty loud in a concert as well. And they've most of the time got something to say.
So I'm going to interrupt the podcast for a minute and edit in this short little sound bite. I would like to remind everybody, if you have enjoyed listening so far, which if you've made it this far, I assume you have, to follow us on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, or YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. That's the only 4 places we are right now, so let us know if you need us somewhere else. Make sure to follow us, comment, email us if you'd like to. It's all in the description. We're going to move on to talking about short films now. I would like to hear from you guys if you have short films you would want to hear about. If you are a crew member and you would like to talk to us about your experiences on films, we'd like to hear from you as well. So feel free to hit us up and follow us wherever you can and share us with your friends. Okay, so Nick, did you get a chance to watch that short film?
I did.
Yeah. Okay, so let's all, out of 1 out of 10... let's all rate it because.
Okay, firstly, what will remind me of the name of it? It was Your Old Man.
Your Old Man, yeah.
Yeah. So Your Old Man. I looked it up on IMDb, and interesting bunch of people.
Yes. Yeah.
I actually really, really enjoyed it.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
I thought it was good until it came to the colors.
Oh, well, I would have
grading.
agreed that it could have been... Okay, there's 2 philosophies for grading, and probably sound as well if you really get into it, and that is, do you do it safe, or do you take a risk and deliberately say, I'm going to grade this? Or give an example like Brother, Where Art Thou? Or Matrix, which is often referred to.
Or Blade Runner has a lot of really interesting.
Yeah, you've got your color palette, you thought it through, and all these kinds of things. This had, I think, they did it with a certain sense in mind, but I felt it could have been a bit more pushed in terms of the color.
Right.
It was a bit safe.
Well, there was points where it kind of almost felt like they almost didn't grade it at all. But then there was that scene at the beginning that at the funeral that the skin tones were just the woman looked so dead, and it was just yellow and black.
Wait, you just said at the funeral the woman looked dead. How much of a sin is that? Okay, now here's I took the liberty
mission accomplished, I'd say.
of downloading it. And I've got it in my editor, and I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
Now this is an interesting thing. So if I look at my waveform vector, it is clear that they definitely did QC this or set this up for QC. Then their levels are never higher than 100. They're clamped at some degree, and there's 0 levels as well. So they're exactly right. And for those who haven't done proper coloring, you can go under white, under black, and over white by a long way, and it won't pass, and it won't look right. Now, another thing they may have done, and it could have been set up this way. Again, they may have sat and had 20 meetings about the look they wanted, as well. We don't know that. Otherwise, it wasn't distracting enough to me, other than I kind of thought I would have done it differently.
So, as far as I know, because I picked this one, and Phil knows this. There's another filmmaker on YouTube, and his name is Dominic. I want to say Farah is how you pronounce his last name, and he's got amazing short films. And then this short film was made by a friend of his.
Oh, okay.
A while ago. My dog's getting excited about something.
What about that? I'm almost uncontainable. What you just said, dude.
Yeah. So, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, his friend. So, anyways, this is kind of one of his friends, who this was one of his first films, from what I understand. And if you kind of watch his later films, things get a lot better paced, I should say, and you can kind of tell that he sort of learned from what he was doing. So I kind of picked it because it was sort of a good way later on in like another episode at some point to go back and watch one of his
let me ask you this though.
Films.
Now you said pacing. I actually enjoyed the pacing.
Did you?
Yes, because of the nature of it. And
right.
This comes down to anything with art and how you do things. And again, it's like those briefcases that go, how much action do you want? And how much, realism do you want? And of course, real life. See, this movie probably wasn't aimed at you as an audience.
No, I think for me it kind of missed the mark. But
right. However, let's look at it this way. Otherwise, camera angles, camera movements, there weren't any weird jolts and
it wasn't
strange.
like anything.
It wasn't
like
obvious.
filmy.
Yeah, obviously crappy focus pulls. It didn't look like they used a rehearsal take ever. I mean, it was all. Sometimes you do, and they don't look like them. With a good crew, they get away with it. But I've seen that on major movies where it's like, why did they use that take? It's technically bad, but the performance was better. In this case, I thought the whole thing was very consistent. I thought that the performances were good, the audio was good. Although, here's the thing, and we can't tell what they were thinking, and that is this: theater should peak, streaming should peak no more than -12. These peaks full deflection, this show. And now the person streaming it or listening to it probably can't, they won't tell the difference unless they compare it to something that is at -12. Now, the reason you want to stay at -12 is you've got your headroom, you've got all those other things. And also, if you are watching a whole bunch of Netflix, it should all be the same level, right? Except for, you watch those streaming services and they put us through the ringer. Literally, they'll go, if you're 12.01 dBs.
Oh, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, they'll drive you nuts. That's right. And, you have to, in some of those micro peaks and things like that, and I've actually found them on QC. Sometimes we've had stuff rejected for 1 pixel, not a stuck pixel on the camera, but one frame that had a pixel. They find it. They find everything. They put you all through it. And the other thing that's funny is that, so, you're working with a distribution company and they say put our logo on the beginning, and their logo doesn't pass QC. So you've got to change their logo, and it could be that their white is 110%. So you've got to back it off for them. And it's amazing. But then you do all of that and you pass QC, all this time and effort afterwards. You put your thing, it goes onto Amazon. So then you're watching it, and then the trailers for the other movies they're not, they're different levels and all sorts of things, and so it drives you nuts. Now, here's the thing: when you're streaming something on YouTube, though, I've done this where I've mastered to 0, and instead of -12, because I know that on YouTube you sometimes have a problem where people say I couldn't hear it, and I turn up my phone all the way and they're watching it on their phone without headset on or no earbuds on a train, and they can't hear the thing, they can't hear the content, so you have to boost it. And also, and this is what I was going to say about maybe the color on this, and I watch this on my computer, not on my phone. Phones have a problem that they tend to, it's a weird way, the OLED screens and all this kind of stuff do something to the black and mid colors where you might want to raise some of that. I still keep my black level at 0 if it's absolutely should be black, and then just raise a little bit above that so that on a phone it looks good and still looks good on other equipment. I don't see people talking about this. This is just my way of doing it. So,
so Phil, what did you think?
I'd give it I'd give it a 6.7 out of 10.
That's pretty much around where I'd.
Yeah, I didn't mind the color grading. I thought the color grading was fine. As far as I agree with, they kept it pretty cohesive. I agree with saying that they probably were going for something specific in that funeral scene. But what bothered me the most about the movie is I feel like the main character, the protagonist of the story is
the father.
The daughter.
Oh.
Well,
yeah, she, and he's the antagonist, really. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
But he should be the main character. Is my point. What I want to get at. If the movie was came from his perspective, I think it could have been a lot more impactful than the daughter finding out. I think
maybe a follow-up film, maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that the idea of a daughter finding out that her father was adopted is interesting. I think it would be more impactful that if he found out and he was dealing with it.
And
Also,
try
the
and
dad is
find a way to tell her.
exactly, and
Yeah.
like maybe he goes instead of going to the funeral, maybe he goes and tracks down his birth parents or something like that.
So here's the question: is what makes a good movie? Is it the story, the performance, the technical, or a combination of all of those things? Which is what I would say. From the standpoint of, is this a good project? I would say it's a great project. In fact, I wrote as much on their IMDb page because nobody had said anything, and I thought they all were great actors. There are some moments in there I'm like, they really put something into this, but it's not an action flick.
It cracks me up.
The what?
The toll booth guy with the fucking pointing.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, you see, and that could have been, they were right on the verge of being cheesy, right? But it, to me, never was. Now, here's the thing. Okay, now, so my favorite movies of all time are like, not the action flicks. I mean, you know, Contact, The King's Speech.
Oh,
things like that.
That's a good movie. That's
right.
Yeah.
But you see, where I'm coming from is those sorts of movies will take their time. So when you talked about the pacing,
right.
There's some stuff. There's on Amazon right now. There's the Agatha Christie stuff, and a very unlikely Hercule Poirot. What's his face? John Malkovich. It's a great project. I wish it wasn't called Agatha Christie something, because it's almost like it's a parallel thing. It's like casting me as Superman. It's not the right thing to do, but I could maybe have a superpower, but I'm not Superman. We all know that. But it's so well done, and if you watch that...
Not with that attitude.
Yeah, I know, that's right. I'm myself in kryptoniting. But if you watch that, the first scene grabs you, and my girlfriend said, "Oh, this is really good." And there's nothing happening. It's just all walking around and sound effects and things, and it's setting the scene, and he's looking at his mail. But you can just tell they cared. And it either was exceptional set sound or really good ADR and Foley. And what you end up with is something that just, I found myself totally immersing into it. And she did too. And then she's not a technician. You know, she works in retail, you know, totally different. So, but she noticed it and said something, although I've tried to sometimes share with her some of the stuff I do and go, what do you think of this? And she tries, and she's helped me with sound effects and stuff, so she's got a sense of what's going on. But I'm saying that when you've got somebody who's only been thinking about that for 2 years of her life, as opposed to somebody who's been doing it for, you know, many, many decades, and still she picks it up, that's why I'm thinking, that they must be doing something better. That the general public do perceive, even if they don't know why.
Right. Yeah, I really... Because the first time I watched it, I didn't know a lot about filmmaking or anything, and I really liked the plot. And personally, when it comes to the whole point of view of the father is that completely changes the story, you know, like that might be like a better, like a sequel, like Your Old Man 2, Electric Boogaloo or something, you know, where now that he knows that, you know, his dad wasn't his dad, then he, you know, goes on whatever journey, like you could do the stages of grief or however you want to do that. But I want to say the big thing that I appreciated with this film is at the end of the funeral, when the girl walks out, the dad is talking about his deceased father, and he's like, I can't remember exactly what he says, but he's like, I should say he's a great guy, but I'm not going to because he's a dick or something. And I appreciate it, and that's what I expect to hear at my funeral as well. So I don't know, I just appreciated that.
I think it was better than a noble effort. I think that they probably got what they were trying to achieve. Yeah. I just thought all round very, very good. I'd like to see that group of people succeed and do other things.
Yeah, well,
now when you...
Nick, I'll have to, after this, I'll have to send you the YouTube channels of all because there's a whole group of them, and they all have some really phenomenal short films. Specifically, my favorite Dom Farah. They're fantastic. Like, they really are. So I'll have to show you. And I have lost many a night just going through their short films.
I've got something to send you as well.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
No, it's not something I did. It's somebody else.
Right.
That did it.
Well, Phil's picked out
sounded very ominous.
Next week's short film.
Oh yeah.
So Phil, what are we watching next week?
So it's a Spanish short film called Timecode.
Okay.
Came out 2018, I want to say. It's on YouTube. You'd have to buy it on YouTube. It's like $2, I think.
Okay.
But it's like 15 minutes long. 2017, I want to say. Yeah, it's really good. I love it because how simple it is. It's one of those movies where it's just like, there's a lot of short films out there who try to make things big.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just people who make movies out there who try to make like a crazy story, crazy characters, whole crazy world, and that doesn't necessarily need to happen to make a really good movie.
Right.
You can keep things really, really simple, and it's yeah. I don't want to spoil it because it's a love story. I'll give you that much, but that's as far as I'll say.
Okay, sweet.
That's a teaser if ever I heard one.
Yeah, I'm excited, actually. So I hope everybody enjoyed. That was super, super duper awesome. I knew there was a reason I asked Nick first before anybody else. It's because he's super fun to talk to and listen to. So I hope everybody enjoyed. Yeah, so Timecode is next week's short film. And
Cool.
Yeah. Bye.
Wonderful.
The end.
See ya.
It's great to meet you, Nick.
Absolutely. See you guys.
Boom. Perfect.
See ya.
Bye.
Peace.